What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Rythmik LV12M subwoofer. We're going to talk about it. We're going to review it. I'm going to tell you why it's worth your money. But in order to respect your time, I'm just going to tell you like this from the jump, and then we'll get into it more and we'll do the actual review. If you love audiophile bass and all the characteristics that come with it, but you crave the crazy output capability that is common in, like, say, car audio, but you're like, God, I wish it had the refinement and the fidelity and the nuanced detail. I wish it could be like super high quality, but I want it to pound. You have found your subwoofer. You have found it. We're going to do this review the same way we generally do. Let me throw the main specs on screen. I'll tell you about some standout features. I'll tell you what the subwoofer sounds like. I'll tell you how it compares to other subwoofers in and around this price point. Spoiler, it compares very favorably. And then we'll wrap up the video. So standout features, this is a compact vented 12 coming in at $699. So the price is right. And the size is pretty good for a vented 12. Most vented 12s are on the larger side. This is the smallest vented 12 I have come across, and it sacrifices nothing for that reduction in cabinet size. Most of the time when a vented sub has a much smaller cabinet, the tuning frequency is compromised. It's going to sound kind of mid-bassy and boomy. That is not the case here. This thing is tuned well. It sounds clean, and the bass is very strong, exactly as you expect from a vented subwoofer. It is servo controlled, meaning it's going to have very good start-stop behavior, very nuanced detail, very good nuanced detail. Note-to-note distinction is going to be very good. And most importantly, where I've found the servo technology really helps is in the mid-bass portion. The mid-bass articulation is better than any other subwoofer I have ever heard in and around this price. So if you like to cross over your subwoofer high for whatever reason, figure 80 hertz or so, 70 hertz, to me that's very high. This is a fantastic option. Personally, I blend my subwoofers usually between 40 and 50 hertz. That's what works real well in my room, but I know some guys, you do 80 hertz for whatever reason. And I would recommend, if you do 80 hertz, try lower, try 50, try 60. You might find that it sounds cleaner. Anyhow, I digress. Standout features essentially are going to be the price point, the technology you're getting, the performance, the output, and the extension. Those are the standout features. But there are other subwoofers that can play fairly loud in and around this price. Hell, for $100, you can get the much larger RSL 12S. How does that compare? We're going to chat about it. So let me tell you what the subwoofer sounds like. In a nutshell, if bass fidelity is among your highest concerns when buying a subwoofer, but you need the output that generally only vented subs can offer, the Rythmik LV12M is without equal in and around its price category. Its start-stop behavior is more like that of a sealed subwoofer. Its note-to-note distinction is more like that of a high-quality audiophile sealed subwoofer. What Rythmik has done with the LV12M and all of their vented subwoofers, actually, that I've heard, is they're really good at getting their vented subwoofers to have all of the audiophile characteristics of a good, high-quality sealed subwoofer. Those handling of delicate passages, that nuanced detail, that high fidelity bass, that clear leading edge, the really good note-to-note distinction, the high fidelity bass. They bring all of that to the table, but with the output, power, and force that vented subs bring to the table. And in the LV12M, they're doing it in a compact enclosure, which is very respectable. So absolute hats off. And for those of you, if it's your first time with me, welcome. Those of you that have seen my videos before, you guys know Rythmik subwoofers get a lot of love from me. I've reviewed more of them than anyone else ever has, and it's because they're damn good. They're absolute hidden gems. And I think the only reason they're not more popular is their website kind of sucks. Their website looks like it was built in 1990. No disrespect, it is what it is. Hell, the reason I got this image on screen behind me and not their subwoofer is I couldn't find a nice picture of it. Their own pictures on the website are very low resolution even. And Rythmik, I'm sorry, I don't mean to take a jab at you, but I can't help but feel some people, they hear about this brand, maybe they go on the website and they get a little bit of cold feet because it doesn't look super modern. But guys, I'm here to tell you, I've bought subwoofers from this brand. I've talked to their engineers. I've emailed their customer service before I had a YouTube channel. This is a legit company, and they make one of the finest subwoofers, period, at their price points. Do not let that 1990s looking website stop you. from putting this on your serious list of products to consider. So, what have I told you so far? The price point's good, the technology is good, and the performance is absolutely stellar. Whether you're hunting for extension, fidelity, or output capability, the Rythmik LV12M brings it all to the table. One of the subwoofers I've been using for a long time and own personally is the more expensive version of this that's a little bit larger, the FVX12. I awarded that subwoofer of the year at one point, and I still highly recommend it. That's also an absolute hidden gem. If you've got a little bit more room in your budget and a little bit more room physically for a deeper cabinet, the FVX12 is absolutely phenomenal. But for those of you that loved everything I said about the FVX12 when I reviewed that, and you wish you could have that in a smaller form factor, voila, the LV12M. At $700, it is truly without equal. But let's do some comparisons just to give it some context. So, there are two different kinds of subwoofers essentially. In car audio, this is well known, but in the home audio space, it seems like most subwoofer companies try to pretend their subwoofer can do everything, but that's generally not the case. The car audio brands are very clear about this. Some subwoofers are SPL subwoofers. They have a heavier tone, a little bit more of an in-your-face presentation, very aggressive. They kind of make you go, whoa, but they can kind of crush some detail, maybe not have the quickest transient response, right? Those are SPL subs. And then there are SQ subs. SQ subs are generally what a lot of audiophiles tend to like more. SQ subs oftentimes don't have as much output capability. Sometimes they don't have as much extension, but they reward you with tremendously better sound quality and audiophile bass that instead of being in your face is coming from an ink black background, a direct extension of your speakers and enhancing the whole experience. Rythmik is SQ bass, except you don't give up any extension or output. So with that said, let's get into the comparisons and remember that difference between SQ and SPL because it's going to make these comparisons make a lot more sense. And by the way, SQ or SPL, one's not better than the other. It's a matter of personal taste. Some people like that heavier tone that is more in your face, and they don't mind crushing some detail to get that. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. You know what I mean? And conversely, some people prefer that bass that comes more from that ink black background to enhance the experience, right? So, Rythmik LV12M versus SVS PB1000 Pro. They're roughly the same price. The SVS is about $100 more. The feature set is a little bit different on both. The Rythmik LV12M gives you some physical controls on the back. You have different extension options, different slope options, gain, frequency, and phase. Right? The SVS has that smart app where you can really get your fine-grained controls in there. I mean, you can adjust phase in, 1 degree increments from your cell phone. There's a ton of options for setup. So, those of you that like that smart cell phone app, the SVS has that. But the sound of the two subwoofers is very different. Physically, they're both smaller vented subwoofers, though the LV12M is even smaller than the PB1000 Pro as far as external dimensions. But the sound quality couldn't be more different. The SVS PB1000 Pro is an SPL subwoofer. It does all the things SPL subwoofers do. It has that heavier tone. It's a little bit more in your face. It's going to crush a little bit of detail, but it's going to give you more of that whoa, showroom, strong, powerful bass. And there's nothing wrong with that. The Rythmik LV12M, on the other hand, is a very different delivery. Both subwoofers have very strong, very capable bass that'll rattle your windows. But the Rythmik does it more in the background. It's coming from an ink black background. It's enhancing the music. It's enhancing the movie. It's still going to rumble like hell. I believe it actually extends a little bit lower than the PB1000 Pro. I think the LV12M can also play a little bit louder than the PB1000 Pro because Servo technology does, in a way, boost efficiency, but I digress. The LV12M is going to, the way I can best describe the bass, you could be listening to a song that's like super bass heavy, something like Unstoppable by Troy Boy, and you're not thinking about the bass. You're just enjoying the song. And then when that part of the song comes where the bass stops, you're like, holy crap. Like once the bass stops, you realize how much pressure was on you because it's not very intrusive bass. It pressurizes the room, but it's very easy on the ears. It's not intrusive. It's not going to draw your attention to it. It's not going to localize in the room. It's there in the background, pressurizing the hell out of the room. Whereas again, the PB1000 Pro is more for that guy that wants that bass that's in your face. It's a little bit more, it's gonna not draw attention to itself in a way that it's not going to integrate well. It's gonna draw its attention to itself because it's more in your face. You're gonna be like, whoa, there's my bass, right? It's a matter of personal taste. I've made entire videos about the topic. And just to be crystal clear, one is not better than the other here. It's what you're looking for, right? If you're looking for the maximum in fidelity, you're going to go for the Rythmik LV12M. If you're looking for a presentation that is more going to get your attention, you're going to prefer the PB1000 Pro. Next, RSL12S. This is an interesting comparison. Usually, I don't do comparisons when the size difference is so dramatic, because I don't think people will cross shop subwoofers that are so different in physical dimensions. The RSL12S is another absolute bargain of a subwoofer, just like the LV12M is an absolute bargain. The RSL12S is huge by direct comparison. It's huge, period. It's one of the largest vented 12-inch subwoofers I've ever seen. For $100 more in the RSL12S, you're getting a much larger sense of scale. It is a larger subwoofer. There is no surprise there. If you can, I've said this before, if physical size is not an issue, the RSL12S at $800 is really unbeatable for the sense of scale and sound power you get. There's just something much larger subs can do that smaller ones can't. And I mean, that's why Rythmik themselves make larger subwoofers. You know, the larger version of this is the FVX12. There's also the E15, there's the FV15, there's the F18, there's the G25. Rythmik makes some giant subwoofers because giant subwoofers do things smaller, more compact ones can't, namely sense of scale and sound power. But I digress. So that's what the RSL12S does better than the Rythmik LV12M. And in a vacuum, the sound quality and fidelity of the RSL12S is extremely good for a large vented subwoofer. One of the best I've heard. Until you hear the Rythmik LV12M. Because again, what Rythmik does with its transient response, with its note-to-note distinction, with its start-stop behavior, is better than any other vented subwoofer on the market, period. Its sound quality, its fidelity is better than the RSL12S. It simply is. So this is kind of an easy comparison. If you want the maximum in fidelity, you still want a lot of output, you still want a ton of extension, the Rythmik LV12M is going to get the job done better than pretty much anything. If the compact dimensions of the LV12M aren't a big deal, you know, you don't care that it's compact, hell, you want a bigger subwoofer. If you understand, while the LV12M has the best fidelity, you know, you're okay with good fidelity and you instead just want more output. You want more powerful sound power. And it's just a stronger bottom end that only a larger subwoofer can provide. You're going to go with the RSL12S, right? Yeah, it's pretty simple there. Let's compare the LV12M to its bigger brother, the Rythmik FVX12. The Rythmik FVX12 is a little bit more expensive. It's about $1,100 or $1,200, where the, it's $1,100 in its vinyl finish. It's, I want to say, $1,300 in its piano gloss finish. The LV12M is $699, so quite a bit cheaper. The FVX12 is going to play lower and louder. It's going to have a little bit of a larger sense of scale, having a larger cabinet. That's no surprise there again. The biggest difference between the two subwoofers, right, because they both have excellent sound quality. Rythmik is very good at that. Again, that mid-bass articulation, that note-to-note distinction in the lower frequencies, that extension, that confidence, that force, that start-stop behavior that can best even some sealed subwoofers is all there front and center in both subwoofers. The FVX12 just does everything a little bit better. It's a little bit more well-defined in its leading edges. Its nuanced detail is just a little bit more detailed, if you will. Its start-stop behavior is just a little bit more immediate. It's just a little bit better in every way. So what I would say is this: if you can afford the FVX12 and that added depth it has in its cabinet is not an issue for you, for sure get the FVX12. But if it's a little bit too much money, you don't need all the output that it can produce, and you know you'd rather have the smaller cabinet, the LV12M is a very, very competent performer. And if I haven't already made it clear, it's not just a good, clean, high fidelity vented subwoofer. Its fidelity can best many sealed subwoofers. So that's about 3 comparisons we did there. I'll give you one more comparison versus like a sealed subwoofer just to give you an idea of how they're different. Which sealed subwoofer do we want to go with here? Let's go with Rythmik's own F12. That makes it easy. Rythmik's own F12, that's their flagship 12-inch sealed subwoofer. I haven't checked the price recently. I think it's under $1,200. The LV12M is $699, quite a bit cheaper. The F12 I'm referring to comes in a piano gloss painted finish. So, the difference. The F12 SE is going to have a smaller cabinet, being a sealed 12. Its bass fidelity is going to be more like the FVX12, where it's going to be just a little bit better. Its leading edges a little bit better defined. Its nuanced detail a little bit cleaner and clearer. Its bass texture just a little bit more clear and detailed and things like that. The LV12M is still absolutely phenomenal. The F12 is just a little bit better in every area as it relates to fidelity. But if you're not that picky, and I'll be honest, I'm not that picky, I would gladly give up 2 or 3% in just ultimate fidelity and just have a way, way thicker 40 hertz and below bottom end. Because the vented sub, that's what it's going to do. It's going to give you just way more force and sound power in that, 40 and below range, which is where most of the basses that a lot of us enjoy, right? I'd happily make that exchange, and I have an F12. I own an F12. I enjoy the LV12M a little bit more, but if you're hunting for maximum fidelity, you're going to prefer the F12. It is a little bit better in a lot of areas as it relates to fidelity, but personally, I like the more extension the LV12M brings to the table, you know what I mean? So, I've said this before in other reviews of Rythmik subwoofers. They're all good. Not just good, they're great. They're incredibly good. If you want highly articulate, high fidelity audiophile bass that comes from an ink black background that enhances your music or your movie, that sounds like a natural extension of your speakers, that has start-stop behavior that is on par with some of the best sealed subwoofers in the world, Rythmik is the brand. It is that simple. It's the reason I use a Rythmik subwoofer in my personal system. I use the FVX12 with my Buchart S400 Mark IIs. That is my reference system. I love that subwoofer. I've loved every Rythmik subwoofer I've reviewed so far. Let's name them off. I've covered the L12, the F12 SE, the L22, which is discontinued now, I think, the G22, the E15 HB2, now the LV12M, FVX12, if I didn't already say that one. I mean, I reviewed a ton of them. Every single one of them absolutely delivers. Every single one of them has all the characteristics of high fidelity bass I'm talking about. So I put high fidelity bass on that image behind me. If I didn't already say that, I made that. That's my crappy graphic. I'm not a graphic artist, guys. I'm not good at that kind of stuff. I just need to put something on the screen behind me or it's going to reflect the back of my head and look silly. So that is the review. You want the highest quality bass you can get in and around $700. But you still want tremendous output and tremendous extension that only a vented sub can offer. LV12M is your solution. Go and buy it. You will not be disappointed, I assure you. If you have any questions, this YouTube channel does have a free Discord. You can also ask your questions in the comments below. Until next time, later.